Racing Postcast. Listen online and on mobile.
Well, a very warm welcome to the Racing Postcast. I'm Ed Quigley, Longshot Ted in the studio. I'm joined by the birthday boy, Graham Rodway from the tipping desk. And on the line, we've got David Jennings, our Irish correspondent. Where to begin? Well, we're going to look at the rescheduled Coral Welsh National 145. Keep your eyes open. There may be an inspection, so obviously check racingpost.com for latest news regarding that. All being well, the race goes ahead, and Graham, we'll come to you first. As ever, an absolute war of attrition in heavy ground here around Chepstow. Coggery, Upswing, Mountainous, all vying for favouritism of the protagonists. Which one would be kind of floating your boat? No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a different date, haven't we? But it's not going to be any different race. It's still going to be a slog through the mud for a long time. I've had 3 horses in mind for this race, and 2 of them are at the top of the market: Coggery, Mountainous, and the other one was Midnight Prayer, who sadly doesn't run. So I just think the market's got this race absolutely spot on. I think that Coggery is a massive player, obviously young and up and coming stayer for Nigel Twiston-Davies, and he'll be well suited by the testing ground. He races prominently, which should suit this track. And Mountainous, who obviously has run a cracker in the race before, won it before, and bounced back to form at Sandown last time. I thought travelled really well through that race, and then just didn't see it out. But I mean, we all know this would have been Mountainous's target all season, so I expect Kerry Lee would have left a little bit to work on from that Sandown run, and I expect Mountainous to run his best race of the year and go very close. And I think, yeah, the market's got a spot on it. It is between those 2 in the market.
Well, we're looking around 7-1 for Coggery, Upswing, Mountainous, 8-1 Shotgun Paddy, Emperor's Choice, and bigger prices looking around 14-1 for Bob Ford, Tour de Champ, and then 16-1 Bar. David, I always find this a real head scratcher. They all say course forms are something good to have in the book round here. Is that the way you're looking?
Yeah, I think the key race really is the race at the Open Meeting, the 3 Mile 3 handicap chase, where, you know, the likes of Upswing was second to Sausalito Sunrise, and then you Shotgun Paddy, who was 5th, and you know, Coggery was 4th. So that's the race, and it's worked out really well. I think Perfect Candidate was 5th, he's won since. Rigadan de Beauchesne was 9th, and he's won since. And even Sego Success, I think he finished 14th or 15th in the race, and he's won since quite impressively. So that was a real strong handicap chase. And even last year, if you remember that race, the Druid's Nephew was second to Sam Winner. So it always works out to be a really, really strong race. And I think it's the key this year. And the one I took out of it was Shotgun Paddy. I backed him in the Welsh National last year off a mark of 149, and he ran a shocker. He's off 145 this year. He's a horse. I remember the day he won his novice chase, I think it was back in the winter of 2013, he beat Just a Par in a novice chase at Chepstow. And the minute he won that race, I said to myself, do you know what? He's going to win a Welsh National someday. I'm hoping it's going to be tomorrow. I thought there was more sign of life at Cheltenham last time. Thought he jumped his way to the front. It was only his first start of the season, and I thought Daryl Jacob was kind of reining him back. Every time he jumped well, he didn't want to kick on, didn't want to punish him too much, because I think this race was in mind for a long time, and he'd be the one at the prices. I think 10-1 is pretty fair. I'd imagine it was the plan last season. I'd imagine it was once again the plan this season. I think he's quite reasonably well handicapped, as are so many in this race, but I think the slog that it's likely to turn into, and as you said already, the course form, he ticks both boxes, and if he's on a going day, and he can have ongoing days, but if he is on a going day, I think it's Shotgun Paddy for me, Ed.
I backed him last year, David, and what a mess to start.
An absolute mess from the very start.
Basically, Leighton Aspel, I think it was, he was trying to line him up in front, and he has to front run. There was a full start, and then he ended up coming out in last place, and you can pretty much forget that run. I mean, like you, I thought he was in a Welsh Nationals through and through after he'd run so well at Cheltenham. I've just been a little bit disappointed with him since, but yeah, he's got a chance.
I just remembered the race last year, like you, Graham. I remember telling a few people about him that I'd been waiting on this horse for the Welsh National, you know, for a year or two. And then I said, whatever you do, you'll get a great run for your money, because he'll be up with the pace. And I think he was really badly hampered at the second fence. And I remember he went from about 4th last back to completely last, and it was game over from that point on. But Emma Lavelle, you know, she's patient. And I think she said, you know, don't worry about this. We'll come back this time next year. And, you know, he's £4 lower. And I think if he does get into a rhythm and gets a decent start, hopefully Gavin Sheehan will get him out near enough the front. I think he needs to get the rail as well, because he does jump a little bit to his left. I think if he does get the rail and gets into a good rhythm on the inside, up with the pace, or even joining the leaders, I think he should run very well.
And Graham, I mean, is there anything else left to fill we could look at here, or are we concentrating on the market leaders?
I think the market leaders has got it. So now I think Emperor Choice, obviously a huge player for Venetia Williams, goes through mud like it's good ground, stays forever. Just the sort that you want for a Welsh Grand National. But I'll be even at 7-1 the field. I'm happy to back 2 in the race. It works out 7-2 roughly. Coggery and Mountainous.
Excellent. Well, also on the card, we've got the Future Champions finale, Juvenile Hurdle, coming up at 2:20, often recognised as a Triumph Hurdle trial in itself. And we'll come to you, David. Anything here which is grabbing your eye?
Yeah, I think this is at the mercy of Adrian Dupont. It's a disappointing Grade 1, really. It's one of these races where it seems to every year it just gets that little bit more disappointing, I think. I backed Adrian Dupont the last day at Cheltenham when I thought he was just outspeeded by So Royal, who he had beaten at Chepstow the time before. But I think the ground will be more in his favour this time. He won on very soft ground in France on his sole start in France. His jumping was spectacular, I thought, at Cheltenham the last day. He made a small mistake at the third last, but apart from that, he was flawless, really. And I just thought he was done for a turn of foot. I didn't think they went that quick, and I just thought, while he crept into the race and looked the likely winner for most of the way, after the last, I just thought he didn't have the same turn of foot as So Royal had. I think that's a much better trial than the trial at the Open meeting when Coup-Star Savola was second to Wolf of Windlesham. I thought it was a much stronger trial the last day because you had Leon Cavallo in it as well, who fell at the last, and I'm hoping that, I'd imagine Adrian Dupont will be pretty short price favourite, but if he was around 6-4, 13-8, I wouldn't put anybody off getting stuck in, because I just think he's a better horse than Coup-Star Savola. I think he'd be better suited by the ground, and I think he'd be very hard to beat.
G-Rod, I mean, these juvenile hurdles, not really my kind of better medium, especially when the mud's flying. I mean, can you make a case here for a bet, or is it a watch and brief for you?
Yeah, not for me either, Ted. I mean, it's poorly named, isn't it, this race? Future Champions finale juvenile hurdle. I don't remember too many future champions coming out of this one, Ted. It's a bit of a disappointing Grade 1, as David said. And Adrian Dupont should win. Jabaltiski has been quite impressive, particularly when winning last time out, but he's got a bit to find with the best of them. I thought Major Mac made quite an encouraging start to his hurdle career for Hughie Morrison, without thinking that he was up to Grade 1 class, and that's where Hughie is sending. I mean, I respect the trainer, he's an excellent trainer, but it's a big ask on only his second run. So, I expect the favourite to win. Adrian Dupont, I think, will be favourite and should win.
And we've got the 255 and the 325 are both on Channel 4 as well. David, anything else on the rest of the car which is you've got as a good one for Saturday?
Well, Courtown Oscar has gone up £14 for win at Wetherby in early December, but I thought his jumping was absolutely brilliant that day. He went off odds on, and James Reevely is one of these jockeys. He's a bit like Ruby in ways over fences, because when he gets into a rhythm, he is just effortless, and there's no movement at all. And I thought Courtown Oscar jumps brilliantly that day. He deserved to go up as much as he did. He's only a 7-year-old. I just listened to Philip Kirby after the race. He said he's still a big baby, and I think the key to him was probably small fields. He's won 3 of his last 4 races. They've been 6-runner, 7-runner, 9-runner races, and I think if he does get into a rhythm, it's all about a rhythm. He's a really good jumper. I think he's a horse going forward fast, and he'd do for me in the 255, Ed.
And for you, G-Rod?
I agree with David, yeah. Courtown Oscar's been on my radar all season. I think I tipped him with 2 or 3 of his wins. He's a really good jumper. He goes through testing ground very, very well. He loves it. He's going up in the weights and in class here. I mean, he would not have come up against horses of the class of Wizards Bridge and Racing Pulse before. But I'm not really concerned about it, because I know he just loves this surface, and that'll be such a great leveller in this race. I expect him to win Courtown Oscar.
Well, the lads have marched a card at Chepstow, and coming up next, we'll be looking ahead to Kempton.
Dive deep into our research with Racing Post Members Club. Our premium online service provides you with expert tips, form and the stats you need for a profitable weekend. Join at racingpost.com now.
Well, as we said, we're looking ahead to Kempton. At 2 o'clock is the WilliamHill.com chase. 30 grand's worth of prize money on offer here. Disappointing turnout, as we said, just the 3 runners, albeit 3 very classy runners, and an intriguing contest nonetheless, G-Rod.
Yeah, a lot of complaints about prize money. You can't have any complaints here, but there's no runners. Petit Zig class apart, isn't he? I mean, particularly in a small field race like this. Last time, Huntingdon, he was undone his jumping just went completely to pieces with, I think it was Wishful Thinking, blasted off in front in the Peterborough and went a really fast pace, put the pressure on those in behind to jump well, and Petit Zig did not take to it at all. He hit several fences before coming down.
You worried that can happen again with the same rival in the field?
Not too concerned this time, because that time it was more of a competitive race. I don't see this time Richard Johnson going so quickly on Wishful Thinking. I don't think he'll need to in a free runner race to get the lead. I think this time he'll be able to settle Wishful Thinking in front. He won't go off as fast as he did as Huntingdon, and that should help Petit Zig to get into a rhythm. I can't believe Triolo Delane's got any chance on this ground. All his best form's on faster, and I think he wants further. So it's a two-horse race. Petit Zig is a class apart.
David, I've been boring everyone silly saying I'd like to see Petit Zig over 3 miles sooner rather than later. I just think it would help his jumping. Is it a case of Petit Zig jumps round and wins for you?
Yeah, I'm going to make a point now that you're probably going to be tearing your hair out. I think you should actually back him for the Ryanair now, because it's a race that's absolutely there for the taking from a punting point of view each way, because you've got, Vautour, by all accounts, reading between the lines, it's Gold Cup all the way for him. You've got Q-Card is going to go run the Gold Cup, Don Cossack is going to run the Gold Cup, Road to Riches is probably going to run in the Gold Cup. So you're looking down the list and you're trying to find what the hell is going to run. Now, Smad Place is apparently going to go for that race, and you could look at him each way as an angle, but I think Petit Zig and Irish Cavalier are the two to be interested in at 16s and 20s, because they're probably going to go for the race. I'd be surprised if Paul Nicholls decided to run Petit Zig against the likes of Jack Adam and all the superstar 3 mile chasers we have at the moment. And
do you think he needs further though, David? I mean, if you look back at last year's JLT, he looked totally outpaced before kind of staying on again. I know it was against the mighty Vautour, but on good ground, is 2.5 miles his trip?
Yeah, I think the key race there where I thought that he looked an out-and-out 3 miler was the day he beat Champagne West. I think it was on New Year's Day last year in the Dipper Chase. He looked beaten at one stage there, and he still ended up winning by 6 lengths. And Champagne West is probably another horse that you could have an angle into in the Ryanair, and that type of horse. But he beat him 6 lengths in the end and going away. So I can certainly see your point, but I just think I just don't see what advantage would be gained from stepping him up for the Gold Cup trip, because it's such it's a vintage renewal this year. He's not a superstar, but he's a very good horse. His jumping fell apart the last day. I don't really know what went wrong, but I think it's testament to his ability that he was only 1.5 lengths down when he fell. So, the race tomorrow, I'd imagine he'd be a very, very short price, very hard to oppose. But if he did win quite impressively tomorrow, the 16-1 available at the moment with Paddy Power could turn into 12 and 10-1 very quickly. And this market in the next couple of weeks is just going to go one way. And the likes of Petit Zig, the likes of Irish Cavalier, these type of horses are going to get much, much shorter, because people are going to start realising that those towards the top of the market are not going to run. So I'd be advising people maybe to back Petit Zig for the Ryanair now.
Some good anti-post angles from Mr. Jennings there. Then the 2:35 is the big betting heat of the day, the William Hill Lanzarote hurdle. We're going around 5-1 You Not Amin Harry Bavouac at Ibis de Roe, 8-1 Western Warrior, 12-1 Brother Ted, 14-1 Bar. G-Rod, Ibis de Roe's been well supported for this in recent times. A half brother to Safia de Roe, obviously a stable companion. Very quickly, there's a lot's been made about the Paul Nicholls stable form as a whole. I mean, is it something that puts you off when you're looking at a race this trappy, or do you tend to take a more diplomatic approach and approach each horse on its own merits?
Yeah, no, I don't put too much emphasis on stable form, to be honest with you, Ted. I don't think he's out of form at all, really.
Has it been blown out of proportion?
I think so, yeah. I think that last week he had a day where he saddled 4 seconds in a row. 1 or 2 of these have been a little bit disappointing, but if those 4 seconds had all won, we'd have all sat there and said, "Oh, Paul Nicholls is absolutely flying." It's just
small
the
margins
are just ridiculous. I just don't think that he's out of form at all. I just think he's not having the sort of season that we've become accustomed to seeing him have. Usually he just bangs in every big winner every week, and it's not happening for him. But I'm not sure it's down to the health of the horses. Just probably hasn't got the quality that he's had in the past.
Do you think Ibis de Roe's got the quality to win?
I don't fancy him too much. I think he's short enough on what he's achieved already, and the same goes for the other one, top of the market, Bivouac for Nicky Henderson, who, again, people were saying was out of form going into Christmas, and then all of a sudden he just banged in winners all over the place at Kempton. And the one I like is On Ace, at a much bigger price for Kim Bailey. This was a decent chaser in the novice ranks last year. Has come back over hurdles this year, and put in some really stellar efforts. Stayed on nicely last time at Aintree. I think ideally he'd like a bit better ground. It is on the soft side, but when he was second at Aintree, it was pretty testing. So I think he might get away with it. And I still think he's got a decent prize in him over hurdles. He was a decent novice over hurdles a few years ago. I'm sure he'll go back over fences when the good ground comes in the spring.
Yeah, look out for an ace at an each way price there. David, anything you've got your hard earned on?
Yeah, I like two. I like one at a shorter price and one at a bigger price. Ibis Daru is the one I like at a shorter price. Disagree with Graham in a little bit. I just think 6-1 is fairly fair. When he would have been back up in another few strides at Newbury. He's only got £4 for that. You know, this horse was beaten a half a length by Top Notch at Bordeaux when he was in France. Top Notch rate 158. Now this horse is so unexposed off 135. Thought he jumped quite well at Newbury, seemed to handle the ground perfectly well, and that was 2 mile 3 that day. He was getting back on top of Royal Guardsman just after the line. I think 2 mile 5 will be perfect for him. I'd say there's plenty of scope for improvement off 135. 6-1 I think is very fair. And the other horse that I'm interested in, he ran the race last year. He didn't run particularly well. I think he finished maybe 6th or 7th in the field. Is Delarca. And you made the point about Paul Nicholls' stable, who I would be a little bit worried about, because the horses that are getting beaten, like Modus didn't finish out his race. A lot of his horses are travelling well. I thought Stiletto looked like a winner at Newbury in a novice chase. But
David, with Modus, the ground was terrible that day. You know, he travelled nice into race. I just think he got bogged down the ground. And the other one, Stiletto, that pulled really hard the whole way round, and that's why he didn't get home. I think there's possible excuses to why Nicholls' horses are getting beaten. I just don't think there's anything to do with their help. I'm sure they're in decent form.
But even if you look at Le Mercury as well, like he was banged there in between the last two fences, and he ended up getting beaten 23 lengths. Now I know Emerging Talent won since, and Capeland won as well, but I don't know. I'd just be a little bit disappointed. I think he made the point himself that he probably doesn't have the string that he once had, and maybe that's the main reason for it. But I would be a little bit worried. But one trainer who I think you have to start following now, I just think there was a glimmer of life this week, is David Pipe. Sol won the Veterans Chase last week. Mount Haven won as well during the weekend. I think his horses are actually starting to be well handicapped now, and I think Delarca, like, if you go back to this early form, like he was beaten 1.5 lengths by Cooney Gray in a novice chase back in the day off level weights. I remember he ran at Cheltenham this time last year in a hurdle. He was just beaten off America 142, and I always thought there was maybe 4, 5, 6 pound for the take, and I thought he was quite well handicapped. And I just think when Pipe's horses do come back into form, which I think they are, I think he's one of these horses that could excel. And you know, he's 25-1. I'd imagine that's not going to last. I could see him going off a little bit shorter, because I don't think it's a particularly vintage renewal of the race, and I'll be having a little bit each way on Delarca at double figures. But I think Ibis Daru is probably the one with most scope for improvement off his mark. Yeah,
even though you're worried about the yards form.
No, I'm just saying, I think with Ibis Daru, yeah, I am worried about the form, all right. But I just think if the yard was in form, 135 is very, very fair mark, I think.
Okay, that's great stuff. And looking ahead to the 310, we've got a real trappy handicap chase here. A lot of out of form sorts from when I looked at it. G-Rod, come to you first.
Yeah, it's another really trappy one, isn't it? It could turn into a bit of a test as well, because you've got the likes of Le Rêve, Masters Hill. I mean, they're all Dower stayers going to be looking to get up there and turn it into such. I don't know. I mean, it's a tough race. Harry's Farewell, I thought, was the big potential improving the race. Came down last time, but was quite impressed with the way he won on his previous start. But I don't fancy anything strongly in the race, Ted. I think it's a really trappy one.
David, anything for you?
Yeah, I remember I tipped up last month. I think I tipped up Grandad's horse in a handicap chase at Sandown, and he absolutely embarrassed me, so he did. He finished 12th of 15, beaten 40 lengths by Carol's Destria. I thought he was quite well handicapped off 140. He's down to 137 now, but he's just completely lost the plot. One of these days he's going to pop up at a big price and win one of these races, but you know, I'm certainly going broke back on him, so I'm going to give up on him this time. I thought the one that was in form that ran quite well last time was Chase the Spud down the bottom of Fergal O'Brien's. Looked for all the world like he was going to hold off Wilton Milan at Lingfield the last day, and he's gone up £4 for that, which is fair. I just think he's probably one of the only ones in the race that's an up and comer. I think there's a lot of them on the way down, but I'll be keeping an eye on Grandad's horse anyway.
I thought Le Rev off top weight could potentially go well, has some smart form at the course. Looking ahead to 3:45, a 2-mile handicap hurdle. It's also on Channel 4. G-Rod, anything here for you?
Yeah, it's another tough one, isn't it? We've got an ultra competitive field. I really like Exitas, who was quite a smart horse in his younger days. Went a little bit off the boil since for Phil Middleton, but I thought he looked like he was coming back to form a couple of starts ago. He ran really well in second. Disappointing last time out, but I'm willing to give him another chance. Again, it's not really a race that I have a strong view on, but if I was going to have a bet in the race, Exitas would be the one.
And David, we'll come to you for Ireland on Saturday. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on the Moscow Flyer novice hurdle at 2:05. This is a race that's been farmed by Willie Mullins in recent times. I think he's won 5 of the last 7 renewals.
That's every race in Ireland, isn't it?
Michael Dagenet, Vautour, Douvan, a kind of familiar scenario there. And obviously, Min's been one of the hype horses over the summer. He was being talked about as a Supreme Novice Hurdle winner back then. Many people still see him as the Supreme Novice Hurdle winner now, and this should be a procession if the betting's anything to go by, shouldn't it, David?
Yeah, real disappointing opposition to Min. You know, the last couple of years, at least it's been a decent race, and you've got a couple of horses that were rated high in the 130s in the race. But this year, it's really disappointing. I was doing the analysis for Min's Irish debut at Punchestown, and the thing that impressed me most was his jumping. I thought he was absolutely flawless. He just attacked every hurdle, and he looked a complete natural. Talking to Ruby Walsh after the race, you know, I asked him, I said, where did this big reputation came from? And he said he did a nice piece of work. He said not a breathtaking piece of work, but he did a nice piece of work the season before, I think, in a school and hurdle in Turles. And that grew a few legs. It turned into a very good piece of work, which turned into a phenomenal piece of work, which turns into he could beat anything. Yeah. So these stories just grow legs. But you know, it's very hard to find fault in his performance. The horse he beat, Gertine, won a bumper at Leopardstown over Christmas, and it's held in fairly high regard by Robert Tyner. It's just disappointing because we're going to learn absolutely nothing here. Attribution is going to probably follow him home. He's rated 132, but I think what's going to happen is Min will probably pop out in front, will probably lead most of the way, will jump well, and will probably won't come off the bridle and win by 7 or 8 lengths, and will probably be cut in the market for absolutely no reason. He's as short as 9-4 already, so I don't know how they could cut him any further, but you know, it'll be exciting
it
to see him.
happens, doesn't it? It does happen.
He will go, if he gets to Cheltenham unbeaten, he will go off a short price favourite for the Supreme, almost certainly, because the bookmakers are going to be scared of that potential big Mullins accumulator, because Mullins has got the Douvan, he's got Forheen, Annie Power could line up, and there's no way they can possibly send Min off at a good price, because there's going to be so many people putting him accas with the other 3 that it would be a huge liability if he went off a big price. So, I mean, Min is 11-4 best price for the Supreme. He has to go off short than that if he gets there unbeaten, and he probably will, because he'll scare off all the opposition going to Cheltenham.
Well, that's my argument.
And it's funny you said that, Graham, because I did a story during the week on this 4-timer. I got in touch with Paul Binfield and Paddy Powers, and we did the story on it, and he went to the traders and got all the info. And one of the questions I asked him for the story is, what is Paddy Powers' worst loser? I said, what is your worst loser? And he came back to me, got in touch with the trainers, and he said it's absolutely no contest whatsoever that Min is their worst antipose loser by a long, long way, and that nothing would even come close to him come the festival. So that tells you all you need to know. The right people are on this horse. So, you know, I hope he wins, because he looks like he could be another Douvan. He could be another Vautour. So hopefully he does win. And if he doesn't, it'll be pretty disappointing.
Obviously prohibitive odds for most punters, Min in that one. David, is there anything else on the card at all, though, which you think's worthwhile?
Yeah, I'm actually working on the card spotlights for tomorrow. There's a few JP McManus owned horses which are very, very well handicapped if the money arrives. There's one in the 3:15, a horse called The Living Beauty, who is a 5-year-old daughter of Yates, who has only had 6 starts, tried over fence to Sligo the last day. It was a bit of a disaster, but beat a horse called Prince Cup in a Cork maiden hurdle back in April. And I just think she's been crying out for 2.5 miles. I think if she's well supported in the 3:15, she'll take a lot of beating. And another JP horse that I thought ran a really eye-catching race was the Tom Taft trained I Knew Well, which runs in the Martinstown Opportunity Handicap Chase, which is obviously sponsored by JP McManus. So I just thought he ran really well the last day at Navan behind Walk to Freedom. Was beaten 27 lengths in the end, but travelled really well into the home straight. And I think he's quite well handicapped off 108. So if money came for I Knew Well in the 1 o'clock or The Living Beauty later on in the card, I'd be very interested in both of those.
This will not be beaten.
G-Rod, come on, this is your time. Saturday Banker birthday boy, where's all the birthday money going?
I really don't think this will be beaten either. It's called Sykes in the 110 at Chepstow. This ran a cracker last time out at Newbury. Very lightly raced, particularly at the stay-in distance, and he did by far the best of those to come from off the pace in that Newbury contest. It was dominated by horses that raced up with the pace, but Sykes came through strongly, travelled well, just couldn't get to grips with a winner, finished second. Sykes is open to any amount of improvement. He's so lightly raced and over this distance particularly so. He loves testing ground. I think he's got loads going for him. I can't see him being beaten.
Nap for you, DJ?
Geez, strong words. The only race you didn't come to me at Kempton, Ed, I was dying for you to come to me for the last race, but you went straight on to Ireland. On the David Pipe team, and that his horse are coming back into form, I think Stars Over the Sea is dangerously well handicapped. The ground is a worry because if it gets really soft, it's not going to suit. But you know, you have to remember this horse who won its jumping debut was at Kempton back in October of last season. Not a particularly good jumper, but you know, he's beaten 5 lengths in the Grade 1 juvenile hurdle at Aintree last year and was a bit unlucky. Didn't get much luck in running that day. Was held up that day. Then it was 4 to Petit Parisien in the Grade 1 juvenile hurdle at Punchestown. I thought it ran quite well at Chepstow in October. I forget its run the last day. Nothing went right. He's down to 135. He started the season off 141. He's down to 135. He likes Kempton. Pipe's horse are coming back into form. I'll be all over Stars Over the Sea in that last race at Kempton.
Well, up next we'll be looking ahead to all the Sunday action.
Got an iPad? Download our daily edition. It's our live news service, database and organiser all in one app. Start your free 30-day trial today.
You are listening to the Racing Postcast. I'm joined by Graham Rodway from the Tipping Desk. On the line, we've got David Jennings, our man in Ireland. Looking ahead to Ireland on Sunday, David, the At the Races chase 2:30 at Tramore. Weather permitting, it goes ahead. A small field, a few veteran campaigners, but intriguing nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that Ruby goes there because I actually really fancy one of Willie's at Fairyhouse, which we'll come to later. But yeah, it's interesting that he goes there. Ballycasey, has there been a more disappointing horse in training? I know we can probably think of a few, but Ballycasey's been so disappointing. You know, this is the horse that beat Don Cossack in a Grade 1 Moriarty chase at Leopardstown. He's just gone from very good to moderate to extremely disappointing very quickly. And
does it encourage you the fact they're persevering within them?
It does, yeah, it certainly does. I'd be worried that he ran in the Grand National last year. He was actually Ruby's Mountain. That I'd be a little bit worried by that. It was a case of a last straw, maybe. But you know, he always had this touch of class, and when he's on a going day, he always looks really, really good. And the thing about him is he's very good fresh, which is a key to him as well, because I think he does go well first start of the season. You know, he's rated 149. He's a bit to find on the ratings with Roy Demi, but Roy Demi is 11 now, and God, Roy Demi has won plenty. I think he's definitely on the downgrade, even though he wasn't disgraced in the JN Wine. Ruby Light ran a cracker last day against Sir Deschamps, which has been let down since, but it looks Ballycasey's there for the taking, but he can't be trusted.
G-Rod, a lot of old campaigners slogging around in the mud. Go on then.
Well, what about Ruby Light? I mean, I backed him last time in running because I thought that there was no way they were going to get anywhere near him. I thought it was a remarkable performance by Sir Deschamps to come and pick him up, albeit he did have a huge class edge, and maybe they went a little bit too quick on Ruby Light in hindsight. But there's no Sir Deschamps in this one, is there? This is a much weaker race, and he might be able to boss it.
And David, anything else in Britain or Ireland on the Sunday which you're very keen to get involved with?
Yeah, the big race the weekend, money-wise anyway, is the Underwriting Exchange Danmore Memorial Handicap Chase, which is worth €60,000 to the winner. And from the entries came out, I've been very interested in Tennis Cap, who is a horse that was second in the county hurdle a few years ago. It jumps quite well. I thought it was pretty impressive at Killarney back in May when it won a novice chase. Likes to get on with things. It wasn't disgraced. I know it was beaten a long way by Smashing, I think over 18 lengths on his return at Gorham, but that was a decent race, and you know he probably just needed the blowout. I'm surprised. I'm a little bit disappointed that Ruby isn't riding it. Danny Mullins is riding it instead. Ruby is going to Tramore, but I think this is tailor made for Tennis Cap. I think he'd be out there bowling along in front. He's a good jumper. He's a touch of class, and I think off 140, he'll do for me.
Well, David, thanks for joining me. Best of luck with those. G-Rod, I'll let you go and eat your birthday cake now, but thanks for that anyway. Well, yeah, best of luck with those selections, and thanks for joining us. And please tune in on Monday, where we'll be reviewing the weekend action and looking forward to the week ahead.
The Racing Postcast. Listen online and on mobile.